Okay, the book contains public leaders and the national anthems. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Merrill High School's Veterans Day Assembly. I want to welcome all veterans and their families and board of education members and community members and our staff and students for joining us at this ceremony today. Merrill High School's had a long tradition of proud history of honoring our veterans through Veterans Day celebrations such as this. It's my hope that we can continue to honor our veterans through our own efforts to support them and match the efforts that they have put forth to ensure our freedoms that we all enjoy today. Before I start, I'd just like to recognize the efforts of Mr. Fraser and her committee for putting this program together, Mr. Adams and his group for joining us today, the concert maker, the Women's Ensemble, and the vocal Jays for helping us with the years. So congratulations, everyone, for making this happen. We'll start our ceremony, or continue our ceremony, with a moment of silence that honors all veterans who served, or who are serving in the United States of America, with the ideals of freedom and democracy. You can please rise for a moment of silence. Thank you. Before I start, I'd like to recognize two of our high school staff members that are rolling with our armed services. Mr. Klein served in the Army, and Mr. Smith with the Marines. So thank you guys for being here. At this time, it's my pleasure to turn this program over to Mr. Russ Hyland, who will introduce the Voice of Democracy competition winners.
Good afternoon. As I've said before, every year, the Veterans of Foreign Wars has a new commander-in-chief. Every year, we get a new theme for the Voice of Democracy. As soon as a new commander-in-chief gets that out to all the local posts, which Merrill is a local post, we get it out to the schools so all the students can compete in this essay program. This essay program is very, if you go high, if you get up to the nationals, you have a pretty good chance to get some good scholarships. But anyway, you have 6 winners this year that we judged, and they did very well. And as I read off your name, would you please come forward? Emil David. Emil is the one that we voted for to be number one in the essay program this year here in America. Second is Jason Gregory. The third one is Sophia Schroeder. Fourth is Emily White. The fifth one is Jackson Rammer. And sixth is Savannah Gunter. It took the judges quite a while to decide who was best this year. As we go now, we will advance 3 of these winners on to district. District will judge, then they will go on to state. And if they get past state, get the first place, they will be going on to national. We've had it done before, and I'm sure you can do it again, so congratulations.
At this time, we're going to hear the meeting essay from the
Why my vote matters. My vote doesn't matter. I'm busy. It's a waste of time. It won't change anything anyways. Look at me. Do I look like a person who can change this? We have all heard these, the multiple excuses our society has come up with and have left America in the state we are in. These excuses have left us in a position, with our latest presidential election, having less than 42% of all registered American voters showing up to make their voice heard. On a more serious note, only 20% of millennials appeared and voted during the past 2 midterm elections because they didn't know why their vote mattered in this country. This needs to change. My vote matters because I'm going to be the change. Our votes can determine what happens in our government, in our states, and in our individual lives. Not only that, but they control what happens for our future generations and determine the way we leave this country for them. Many people in our country complain about how Washington is overpowering everyone and how they have no say in the government. Well, in reality, we've been given the gift of voting, which our forefathers struggled for us to achieve. We complain and complain, but the moment an opportunity comes to make our voices heard, we come up with the excuse that it's too much work or that it doesn't matter anyways. It is true that the odds of a single vote swaying a presidential election is 1 in 10 million, which doesn't make this case any stronger. But that is only if the vote is split directly in the middle. These odds are still greater than any chance at winning the Powerball lottery. Our votes for federal government positions control what happens with our military, our federal laws, and our judiciary system. By making our voices heard, we can contribute to the number of votes for the leader of our country. We can contribute to the number of the votes for the leader of our military. Most importantly, we can contribute to the voice of America. In our hometowns, there is the state, county, township, and city governments. All are relatively small compared to our federal government, but contribute largely to our everyday lives as we can contribute to them. Our votes for state governor can determine our school curriculum, the education for our future generations. Our states raise and distribute our tax dollars, and we can vote to determine who will best use our hard-earned money. The protection of our cities is in our hands. We vote for sheriffs in our hometowns to ensure our safety. The firemen and police officers of our towns are all state employees under the men and women we vote to lead them and keep us protected. For those who are not as easily persuaded, voting has a positive influence on each person who takes part. Before we had our banner of 50 stars in a sea of blue, before the 7 red and 6 white stripes, we had to work for our voices to be heard over Parliament. Women weren't allowed to vote until the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920, and now we see them not voting because they don't want to. Voting is an opportunity to become an active part of your community and our government. It allows everyone to have their voice heard and practice the freedom of speech in a positive way. We live in the greatest country in the world. Why not get involved? Why my vote matters? My vote matters because I want to make a difference, and I'm going to make a difference. I want my voice to be heard in a way that will keep our military strong and our trading partners united. I want all of our small towns, hometowns, and cities to feel safe as they go to bed each night. Most importantly, my vote matters because I can get involved in my hometown, my country, my state, to better the lives of myself and my family. The lives of our future generations can change for the better because I went behind a curtain, filled in a few bubbles, and left with a sticker that reads, "I voted." Such a small whisper within a crowd can turn into a yell from one sea to another shining sea. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the council part will be appointing Merrill. Thank you very much. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, Colonel Paul Russell. Paul? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and student body here at Merrill High School. It's an honor to come here to your ceremony today and speak at my alma mater. Today marks the 100th observance of Veterans Day, whereas it was originally called Armistice Day, for it was November 11, 1918, that the supposed war to end all wars concluded. 2018 marks 100 years since the U.S. entered that war, and of course we know that sadly World War I did not end all wars. In fact, it persisted and resulted in an even deadlier global war just 20 years later that claimed the lives of tens of millions of people worldwide. On this Veterans Day, we take time to honor and remember all those who had the courage and fortitude to swear an oath to serve this great nation. What is it that drives young men and women to answer the call to serve? Why during the prime of their lives, when they could do anything they wanted, they continue to stand up and say, "Send me," when the nation asks, "Who will go?" There are a select and noble few in this great nation who are willing to do just that because they believe in what America stands for and what it means to people around the world. The United States is a beacon of hope in a troubled world, and it's been our armed forces, generation after generation, who continue to advance the American ideal worldwide, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is the veteran who has fought, sacrificed, and died on our behalf that secures and guarantees the survival of our liberty, our rights, our ideals, both here in the United States and for millions across the globe who have starved for freedom and tyranny and oppression throughout our history. It was, after all the success of America's earliest patriots during our revolution that inspired other revolutions around the globe, that freed other peoples from the shackles of despots and monarchy. It was American troops that marched into Europe in both World War I and World War II that toppled tyrannical regimes and liberated the millions suffering under the likes of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. And it was Americans who stood up to the Iron Curtain in the Soviet Union during the Cold War, who fought off the advance of its ideologies in places like Korea and Vietnam. When the U.S. entered the First World War 100 years ago, it marked the beginning of America's rise to be a global superpower. It became one thanks to the sacrifices of the American veteran. They were seemingly normal Americans at the war's outset. They hailed from small towns like Merrill and Antioch, and cities like Wausau, Stevens Point, and Milwaukee. They represented all walks of life: college professors, mechanics, farmers, bankers, and merchants. But they were anything but ordinary. They displayed uncommon valor just as generations of American veterans before and after them did. For those that fought to preserve the Union on the hallowed fields of Gettysburg, Antietam, and Bull Run, on the beaches of Normandy, Okinawa, and Iwo Jima, for those who froze through the winters in the rugged Korean mountains, or battled an elusive enemy in the jungles of Vietnam, or faced the blinding sands in the deserts of Iraq and Afghanistan, I just want to say thank you. On behalf of all Americans, whether you received the welcome home you deserved or not, please know that this generation and those that follow us owe our very way of life to you because of your sacrifices. It is thanks to you that our community and nation lives free every day. It is thanks to you that we have the ability to live in peace, worship all who we see fit, choose our leaders, criticize our government, openly express your ideas. It is thanks to you that our nation has prospered and we enjoy life, liberty, and have the opportunity to pursue true happiness. You, the veteran, understand this freedom, and we enjoy it. You, the veteran, understand this is freedom, and that it is not free, and it certainly does not come cheap. You know that it is born from sacrifice, whether that is stalled college ambitions, months and years away from your family and loved ones, physical wounds, psychological trauma, or for those who need the last full measure of devotion, a willingness to part with their lives. The cost of our freedom and prosperity falls squarely on the backs of those who have worn the cloth of our nation's uniforms. So it is for us, all Americans, to ensure that every day, whether we agree with the politics of a particular war or not, that we reflect on the sacrifices of our veterans and honor their service not just on Veterans Day, but every day of the year. And it is up to us to ensure that our veterans are treated with dignity and the respect they deserve for their willingness to step into the fire on our behalf so that we may sleep peacefully at night here in America. Too often our military and our veterans are merely an afterthought in American society. Never has the civil military divide been greater, and never have so many people relied on so few to secure our nation's, what our nation holds dear. In a time when less than 1% of our nation has served in the armed forces, it is vital that we as a nation not lose sight of how extraordinary those men and women are and what they have secured for us. Less than 1%. That should tell you the rarity of the stock for which the American veteran is cut. They may be seemingly ordinary people from towns big and small and all walks of life, but there's nothing ordinary about willingly putting your life on the line to defend our nation. And I am heartened to know that this great tradition of noble service and sacrifice is alive and well with the current generation of our armed forces. That fighting spirit and commitment is not dead. Far from it. Our greatest generation, many of which served honorably in World War II, are worthy of every ounce of praise they receive. But I am here to remind you that every generation has its heroes, and this one is no different. Our nation is in good hands with the young men and women wearing the uniform today. All we can do is to simply say thank you. We as Americans owe our veterans a debt of gratitude that we will never be able to fully repay. It is up to us to build this country into something worthy of their sacrifice and to simply take the time to appreciate the freedoms we all take for granted every day. Our veterans understand that freedom comes at a steep and oftentimes terrible price. So when we spout our opinions without thinking twice, vote in a democratic election, worship the God of our choosing, and tuck our children in bed peacefully each night, just remember that these freedoms were bought and paid for by American veterans with their blood, tears, and sacrifice. So from the bottom of my heart and your hearts, on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your service. I'd like to close by asking all of us to pay tribute to the thousands of veterans who gave their lives in defense of this great nation and that cannot be here today to share this day with us. Next, the women's ensemble will perform the Battling of the Hills. Thank you very much. Could I ask everyone to please rise? Next, we'll perform taps that have the wearing of our colors, followed by the ringing of the bell 11 times to signify the end of our program. To honor all veterans who gave their lives to sacrifice and secure our freedoms, as after the last bell tolls, the 11th bell, please exit silently. Thank you.